Good morning and welcome to Sales TV. It's a bit of a dreary day out there, but I know we're going to bring you tons and tons of energy and sunshine with our guest today. Welcome to the first edition. We're great to be back in the Cranfield Grenville Turner studios. We've got a great team behind us, Toby, David, Chris, Marco and Rob. Thanks to all those guys for continuing to help. Today we're kicking off something new. Like last week we looked at sports and what sports can tell salespeople. Today we're kicking off a new stream which will become a kind of a parallel series which is all about sales transformation. We've got Alex who's going to be leading that and a special guest host who's going to be leading the series with Alex, Dr. Grant Van Ulbrich. So if we can have Dr. Grant come in please. How are you?
I'm excellent, thanks so much. You're right, it is a little cloudy today here in London, but we're doing fine. Good to see you both as well.
How unusual it is for rain this year so far. It's like warmer, wetter winters. Yeah, it's. I mean, you know, but in your roller within Royal Caribbean, it's good news because there's more sea than obviously, so more places for boats. Yeah.
We're happy with that. That works fine.
So guys, what are we kicking off today? What's the series about?
Yeah, so the series is about sales transformation, but today's episode, which is one of 6 episodes, it's looking at what is and what isn't sales transformation. So who better to have by my side than Dr. Grant Van Ulbrich talk about this topic?
Thanks,
I think that was a hospital pass to you, Grant. So he doesn't know. So can you tell us?
The football pitch has just been passed over. There you go. Well, yeah. You know, there's no pressure in being, you know, the first doctor in sales transformation, but if we look at what we're trying to do here, we're trying to understand and break the mythology of what is transformative sales and what is sales enablement, what is sales improvement, what is sales coaching. And there's so many different viewpoints that are out there in the world. But I can tell you from a academic standpoint, there is a difference. I look back at in 2018 when I went on this journey into the Sales Masters program, which was here in England, the first Masters in Science for Sales Transformation. And, you know, my initial job title was Sales Improvement. And it didn't really sit well with me because I thought, well, I'm not here to improve people. They're not broken. What are we trying to do? We're trying to focus on revenue, obviously, and closing sales. But there's a different way to do that. And that involves transforming the business units. And so therein lies, well, what do we call you? You know, and there's so many different titles out there. There, as I shared with you, from enablement, improvement to transformation, which is coming to be a very big name throughout the industry. But few people understand truly what's involved with doing that. Don't you think that as well too, Alex, in your discussions?
Yeah, I do. I guess for me, the burning question, though, is how big does the team have to be for it to be a transformation? Could it be 10 people?
It could be.
As in the actual sales team?
As in the actual sales team.
Yeah, it's not really limited not to numbers. It's about you and your business stance of where you are in your sales presence. So it could be a team of 1. But if you look at sales and typical selling, we have the base root of sales cycle and sales funnel, which is consultative sales programs. And the consultative sales tips and tricks to overcome and to manipulate the sales process was a big, huge topic in the 1980s. And then it was all about closing, and closing. Make sure you close at least 3 times, especially for contact center sales environments. It's actually required. And then how do you manipulate? Or the best one is, how do you overcome objections? And they teach that to salespeople religiously. But I ask you today, in today's society, does any consumer just want to call in or to go into a sales environment and you just can't wait for somebody to overcome your objections? No, that's not where we live today. The world and society has moved on and evolved, and sales must as well too. So how do you transform? And when you think of what transformation is, there's a good example of if you can envision a caterpillar and a butterfly. A caterpillar doesn't evolve or strive to become a better caterpillar. they actually transform into something completely new and comes up on something completely different. And that transformation doesn't allow them to go back to the way it was. So if you change something, you can go back. But if you transform something, you can forever only go forward. And when you start to explain it to people that way, they start to get it. So in sales, we want to transform the way we sell today from the 1980s, consultative tips, tricks, manipulate the sales conversation, overcome the objections, to actually become better salespeople in the way our consumer wants us to sell to them. And that involves change.
Yeah.
It involves change management.
Yeah, I think we often assume that sales transformation is the entire sales organization transforming the way that they sell. But it doesn't have to be, it could be any form of change. When I think about where the sales process touches the buying process, you've got transformational change that happens with the sales team, but then each individual salesperson is dealing with change every day, but they're also trying to educate their buyer how to change, and then coach their buyer to make or create change within the organization that they're selling to based on the solution that they're selling them. So, where does it end for you? Is there a starting point and an ending point, Grant?
Well, truly, and one of the key words that you just said right there was coaching. And that is why often, and guys, both of you will acknowledge this, we hear so many references to sports within sales, right? The coach who's running the football program, the basketball, any of the coaching programs that you have. Coaching is very relevant to transforming sales. And so it can't be a manipulative conversation where you're doing transactional leadership alone and you're telling people what to do. We've lived there. We've lived there for so long to where I'm the supervisor. I'm going to tell my salespeople they have to hit this quota, they have to hit these KPIs, and they just have to do it. But that leadership approach does not tell them how. It doesn't educate them. It doesn't develop them. It doesn't show them the way forward. So you're not truly developing your salespeople. And you're only doing the conversation one way at the salesperson, and you're not involving the customer. But to your point with coaching, a transformational leader takes all of the focus off of themselves and focuses the development on the individual that they're supporting. And in that element, it's all about coaching. So you're using open-ended questions. You're not telling them anything. You're actually pulling the information and the relationship out of them. And we as salespeople need to do the same thing with our customers. We can do that in sales coaching facilitation because we want the conversation to be about the customer and their needs. And the only way you're going to do that is not through telling. It's through coaching and getting their wants from them. So
let's dig in a little bit on that transformational leadership point, because I think that for me, it's not just the leader that is the transformational leader, it's the individual, and the individual's taking responsibility for almost taking that leadership stance, coaching, supportive stance. And I can imagine that within a sales team, as well as the sales rep doing it for their or with their buyer. So, when we think about transformational leadership, tell us more about your view on that term and how that relates to what we're talking about today.
Yeah, well, you have to understand there's a base. There's many different types of leadership approaches and styles that you can apply, but you have to have a base foundation, right? Some place to start. So if you look at the foundation of leadership, you have transactional leadership on the left, and you have transformational leadership on the far right. Transactional leadership is a prose of tell. It is about me telling you what to do, and I'm leading. And most of the time, I will take the credit for what the team does. So I will tell you all what to do. I may or may not do some sort of coaching. I might be mentoring you in some shape or form, but mostly I'm giving you tell directions. And then I am reporting back up to the leadership on your successes And literally, I'm taking the credit for it. Now, there is moments where you need to tell, and that's great, but you need to get out of that leadership style and shift over to transformational. Transformational leadership is harder because it involves you not taking the credit. It involves you with empowerment, enablement, coaching, guidance, and giving your people the ability to stand up and lead for themselves. And that means you sometimes have to sit into the background. And then when they do lead, if they're successful, all of the praise goes directly to them. It doesn't come to you. You need to measure yourself through the success of your people. And that involves coaching. And it's harder to do because so many times we are hardwired. We want to tell people what to do. But if you do that, you rob them of the development. You rob them of their own ability to learn, to grow, and to also to falter, because we can grow through failure, and that's okay. Your best thing that you can do is when they do fail is to be right there to support them and lift them back up.
Yeah, that's a cultural change, though.
Yeah, it's hard. It is a hard shift. But if you can embrace that and you can realize that if I could shift myself over into a transformational leadership style, I am fostering a culture of development, empowerment, and true ownership. And then embracing the involvement of the customer along the way, that's when your revenues are going to start to flourish.
Oh, that's just radical. I mean, involving customers. Where's this going to end in the series? Yeah, I mean, come on, guys. It's like, whoa. But you mentioned a couple of things there, and the world has rapidly changed. You came to consumerism, and I think that's the bias, really, Grant, that we've all got. It's the one kind of bias you can kind of own up to and go, we're all consumers, but how's that changed corporate bias? How's that? I mean, we've all got an expectation now of visibility, openness, reviews, and all of those things that actually corporately we've not caught on to that yet. In terms of in B2B, we don't do a lot of that. But I also love this piece, which I want to pull out there, which is we all know some transformational leaders, and there's a difference there. I scribbled down legacy. So if you're a transformational leader, you're looking at a legacy of empowering and improving or helping people improve themselves. Or if you're transactional, your legacy, actually when you turn around, horrible to say, but on your deathbed, when you turn around, it is generally about, I just hit my number a number of repetitive times. And that's got to be hollow. Really, I can't imagine how, if you're in that zone, how do you look forward and go, I'm going to retire, and all I'm going to have to say for my career was I hit a bunch of numbers and I made a bunch of shareholders rich.
Well, and it's so true. It is about what is your legacy, but you have to, that's a personal journey, and it's a choice to lead transformationally. And if you can embrace that, if you can understand it, think of it this way. Who will follow you? Do you follow you yourself? Will you follow a transactional leader? So we all have supervisors, we all have leaders, we all have bosses. And do you follow the person who is actually telling you what to do each and every single day? Probably not. You might give about 50-60% of your energy to that person. But if you have a leader or supervisor within sales or with even outside of sales that actually cares, demonstrates empathy, uses coaching, gives praise back to you, picks you up when you falter, and actually cares to champion through empathy your success and your development, will you follow that person? Absolutely. Each and every time. So if you think of sales, people really don't understand the concept of a salesperson and a sales professional. This person is so embattled between change. You have the pressures and transactions of the organization. Hit the KPIs, hit your numbers. We hear that all the time. Manage the numbers, hit the numbers. But then you have also, in today's democracy, where everything is emotional driven, identity purpose driven on buying processes, you have the consumer who is equally knowledgeable about your products, if not more so, with the advance of the internet, AI, and different capabilities. Often we find consumers know more about your products and services than you do yourself. And then there's ghosting, there's deal breaking, there's deal faltering, there is non-responsive of emails and communication. So a salesperson is literally like a ping pong ball back and forth between that. And your job as a leader is to be a transformative leader there to support them. And that involves change management heavily.
Yeah, I think what you touched on there, and I was talking to Guy Lloyd, who we all know. There's a great piece of work that talks about can't leave it behind. And it talks about the mental pressure on salespeople, but you've actually got their personal pressure before they even walk through the door. And you've got financial, you've got health, you've got and you've got basically a family. But Guy and I were kind of spitballing about this, and actually what's really to your point, Grant, is start at 9 o'clock, you walk through the door and you've got all of that that's already before, and then mostly the company then dumps it on you and gives you more pressure. But actually at 5 o'clock, you walk out, you've still got then the work pressure with you, because no one comes in and looks after your deals or your customers. And where Guy was going, which is brilliant, he said, if you're a doctor, yeah, you're a massively high pressure job. But when you go home, there's another doctor that comes in and looks after the patients that you started with. If you're a policeman, you don't go, right, I've got to be here just to rush out and keep that street safe. You've got another police officer that, and you look at all of these other professions and people basically come in and take the pressure away from you. But sales, it's this washer of pressure on you all the time.
It doesn't end.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Not only that, this concept of 9 to 5 would be wonderful.
I was putting a very old model over that, by the way.
No, but
I think that exists.
Yeah, I mean, and the fact that salespeople are, the high-performing salespeople, and I'm sure those that aren't sort of performing at their peak, they're thinking about how they can get their next deal, what can they do differently the following day, whilst they're trying to spend quality time with their families or sort out their finances.
Well, I thought it was fantastic that about 2012 the BBC coined the phrase "we're holiday," because there's no such thing as a holiday anymore. It's you take your BlackBerry at that particular point, or you take your iPhone with you. You're always working on it. And I actually think that when I reflect back, there's a lovely guy called David who helped me when I was trying to do, I wouldn't say it was transformation, it was system enablement, rollout CRM at EMC, etc. Yeah. But what he did say is build in islands of stability. Turn the noise off. Every month, every 3 months, just give everybody a break from it all and let them just decompress, concentrate on the day job. Yeah. And when I actually put this program slide up, Grant, you'd have died laughing. Everyone went, what the hell's an island of stability? Well, you've noticed it's around quarter end, so we'll stop doing these things which are theoretically programs of change, and we'll just give everybody 30 days to concentrate on what their day job is, and it will let everything settle down, and then we'll move on. And I think it's this. I'd be interested in your view. Transformation is this. It's like somebody said to me yesterday. I was on a business people, small business people, forever chase the word growth, and they'll chase it into the sunset without considering the things that they need to do to do it, or even if it's the right thing to do. Yeah. I've got to go into that new market or do that. But actually, everyone chases transformation, don't you find? And it's like, really? Stop chasing it and figure out the why, the what, and the how. Because I remember, and nobody told me, and I didn't know you at the time, which was my fault, but I can remember being sat in front of 5,000 people in Orlando at a sales engineer conference and going, this is the strategy. If we do these things, we're going to be really good in 5 years' time. And no one said to me, well, actually, if you took the central kind of aisle, everybody on that side has no idea what you're talking about, and they're never going to do it. And everyone on this side is kind of going, I kind of buy into it, but I don't know how to do it, so I'm going to need a hell of a lot of change. It would have saved me a huge amount of emotional stress. Yeah. Because I'd have been able to go, no, they're not with me.
Yeah. Are you on the bus or off the bus?
That's the key, isn't it? Well, exactly. On the bus or off the bus, And how are you as a leader going to assess where your team are? right? There's so many times the pressures come from up above in your organization and saying, right, we need to go this direction. And oftentimes it's revenue management, right? Saying we need to do this. These are the numbers we need to hit. Go do it. Go do it. Just, it's funny the direction that comes. They talk at your customer. Just tell them they need to buy this. Tell them they need to do this. That's not how the world works. And so to your point earlier, Andy, about the corporations haven't caught on to this. You're absolutely right. How do we get them to understand the buying process today and the way today's customer wants to be sold to? Because at the end of the day, that's who we're working with. We're working with a consumer that actually in the way they want to be sold to, and it's so different. How do you, like you just talked about as well too, transformation, it's so confusing. There's so many different variations of what it means and what it is and what it is not. And I think what we're purpose here today is just to clarify. Sales enablement is this process of ensuring that your team members have the tools necessary, understand the tools, systems, CRM programs, collateral pieces, tools to do their job. You are enabling the sales team to sell.
Yeah.
That's sales enablement. But sales transformation is how do you change completely so that we don't go back to the old ways, but we go forward in a new future way so that we actually achieve the growth together. And that fosters development.
There's been some great comments. I wanted to bring one comment up on this point, Grant. I think if I pronounce your name correctly, Cheek or Chayek, Tidiane. So he asks or says, therefore the hiring process should be led by the transformational manager, less HR, more sales manager involvement, because a high-performing salesperson can only be known by another one. Put my teeth back in. There we go.
There you go. I actually agree with that. I agree with that. I don't know who that was, but spot on. Which is why we've actually started to teach our sales managers, our sales hiring managers, when they have positions and jobs, you teach them the sales mindsets. We have the sales mindset questionnaires. So now in the recruiting process, you're actually giving these assessments to people to understand, do they have the propensity to sell in the way the consumers want to be sold to? Or are they stuck back in 1980s consultative tips and tricks, manipulation, over arrogance? It's the old school, let's just we're really competitive. We're going to do it no matter what. And it's not about a right or wrong. It's about a system of, can I coach this person? Can I coach them to sell in the way a consumer wants to be sold to? And that's not HR driven. That's sales transformative processes driven.
But I find this from obviously my research that I'm doing. I don't know whether you've come across the paper by Artis and Harris 2007, which looks at self-directed learning. So to my viewpoint is, and we know great people like John at Royal Mail, etc., and Ben at IdeaGen, who are transformational leaders. But what they do is they create a culture and say, you know what, I will facilitate, I will support, I will coach, I'll give you everything that you need, but the onus is pretty much on you. I will help you transform as an individual. I'll help you be the best version of yourselves that you can be. And that actually scares people rigid. I mean, I just talk about four types of sales learners. And I had a conversation with a company, and it was the head of HR, and they will remain nameless, but they have about 400 salespeople. And I said, well, you've got induced, you've got synergistic, you've got voluntaristic, and you've got scanning. That's the four types of learners that Artis and Harris kind of put out there. So therefore, if you've got 400, it's likely, let's just call it simple mathematics, you've got 100 in each of those categories. They learn differently. If you take a voluntaristic individual and try and stick them in a classroom, they're going to have a fight or flight scenario. And they're not going to learn. You've got to, as your point, they've got to have a true coaching relationship with their sales manager. They've got to have access to be able to learn themselves, implement, reflect, come back, have the right viewpoint. But if you're taking someone straight out of university, they want that scaffolding, they want that more structured. They still want a coach, they still want a good leader, but most organisations go, no, what we're going to do is just get everybody in a classroom or stick them in a virtual session, and they're all going to do this, and then the numbers are going to look after themselves.
Now, the risk is that's what companies do using this model. So there's just 4 versions of that, as opposed to what I think where we need to get to as an industry is individualized learning.
Well, and that's where the transformation process has to come into play and understanding what that means. So often I will tell people, I said, look, my job as a leader is to give every single thing that I have of me to you. If you want my job, then I'll help you to get it. There'll always be a place for me. And what people fail to understand in that statement is you're playing a part in your own succession planning. So if you're a leader who is, your main flight is transactional, and you think you have to tell people to protect that information and to protect that, so you're protecting your job and your security, you're never going to move. You're never going to grow, and the company's not going to let you go because you're too valuable. But if you change your mindset to say, wait, if I can develop others, and if I can be a giver of knowledge and help people individually grow to the way that they learn, to your point, Andy, then guess what? There'll always be upward momentum for me, and I can grow because there's my right hand who's ready to step in. And to your point, too many people don't understand that, and they're afraid of that. But that's how you embark on a transformative journey for yourself first.
Yep.
And only when you do it for yourself first, then you can support it for other people.
Now, you do have to give people personalization. Back to Grant's viewpoint, consumerism is driven by personalization. Why wouldn't sales transformation at the individual level in terms of knowledge be driven by it? But then you need codification, because what people get really comfortable with is if I get everybody, and we all know my default is negotiation skills, but if you put everybody in negotiation skills in the classroom, you are confident as a company that that has happened, and therefore you can tick box and go, everybody has done that. Done.
Yeah.
But if you then let people go out on their own journey, which every other profession does, apart from sales, every other profession does it. If you let them go out, you've got to codify it. You've got to actually say, you know what, this person's achieved a standard in that part of their sales knowledge toolkit, because then they can say to the, look, I am owning my own learning, and I've reached that standard, and you therefore don't need to spoon feed me. Yeah. And that's again that bit which is Grant's forefront of the ISP. That's the way we've got to join the rest of the world. Yeah. But we can't judge people by their number and say they're competent because they hit a number. Yeah. We've got to judge people by their skills and knowledge and mindset.
I love this, Andy. I often do this in some of my seminars, and we've all had it, and you just said it. Hit the numbers. Have you ever had that? You have leaders that'll say, hit the numbers. And I say, all right, let's do this. See this pen. Pretend this pen is a number. Hit it. Go ahead. Hit it. And the first thing they try to do is they try to grab it. And I go, I didn't tell you to grab it. I told you to hit it, or I told you to manage it. And then they just look at you completely confused. And what they fail to understand is that a number is a moment in time. And when you see it, it's already done. You can't manage it. There's no way. It's history. It's in the past. The only thing you can manage as a true sales leader is the actions and activities that the sales team produces and that they're capable of, because that's the portion that actually makes the numbers. So as a leader, you need to understand what it is you're trying to drive. You're not trying to hit a number. You're trying to ensure that the actions are there so you can achieve the numbers.
Well, I mean, that's the difference between output KPIs and input KPIs, isn't it? Exactly. Everyone measures that number. I hit the number. But what did you do? Now, we've got 2 minutes left.
What did you do?
We do.
So what I would like you two to tell me is, what does the rest of the series hold for people?
Ooh.
Alex.
Do you...
Yeah.
Okay.
That's now throwing you under the bus because you threw him under the bus at the start. Yeah? It's that type of relationship, folks. We're going to see. It's bare knuckle fighting in the red corner and the blue corner.
Yeah. Okay, so episode 2, scheduled for the 25th of April. We are going to be looking at where are you starting from. So sales transformation needs to have some sort of starting point. Where are you starting from? Yeah. We have a guest, Axel Ferroles. Did I pronounce that correctly, Grant?
Yes, from SAP.
Yeah.
So he has tentatively said he's ready to come, so we'll make sure that he comes and joins, which will be great.
Okay. Shall I omit the names for now?
Yeah,
No, that's fine.
because so far today you've butchered everybody's name. So
There you go.
I got that one right though, Grant. No. Okay. Moving swiftly on. Episode 3 scheduled for the week of the 20th of May.
Yep.
Specific date still to be confirmed. What is leadership? And where are you at the moment? Transactional versus transformational.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then episode 4, week beginning 3rd of June. How do you create the culture for transformative change that sticks? We then have episode 5, week of the 24th of June. The change journey. What are the milestones? What are the islands of stability? To your point.
Come on, lads. It's almost like we planned this, isn't it? There you go.
Never.
And then we're finishing off with episode 6. How do you know when you've transformed? Are you done?
Yeah.
Ooh.
And we do have some great speakers lined up. And I'll just share it because I know them very well. Axel Ferralis from SAP, John Nicholson from Royal Mail. Very excited to have him back. And Axel with him as well, too. Rainer Stern, who's with SAP over in Frankfurt. He's an amazing gentleman. And also one of my co-authors on our new book that's coming out. And then Sakis Tsoudis from SAP as well, too. So it's going to be exciting. Great leaders that are coming to join us in these discussions.
Well, it's been an honour to be with you both today. We're out of time, but Grant, really looking forward to doing a couple of sessions with you on this. Looking forward to continuing to expand what Sales TV is all about. So thank you, Grant. Really looking forward to you hosting this, and yourself, Alex. Thank you to everyone for joining today. We will reinforce actually what the series holds and give you some information around that through our webpage and on LinkedIn. We wish you a fantastic day, fantastic week, and hope you actually have a safe one, which is the most important. Thanks from Sales TV.
Goodbye all.
Bye for now.